Hello. Welcome to a video game I found. So, the backlog wheel will be a thing. I just need something to put out for the other one or two. Depending on how short these are, they'll end up as a 3 or a 2, of course. Like if they're one-parters, they're definitely 3. If they're JRPGs, they're 1. And if they're closer to the 1 part than the 70 part, they're a 2. That's how I've decided to do things, and it will be subject to change. I don't know what this is. I think it's a murder mystery. The doors were all locked, and the windows barred. The afternoon sun barely managed to leak into the dusty mansion. But when the visitor knocked, the sharp sound resounded through the halls. Somewhere, inaudible over the knocking, a pitiful voice let out a groan and called out into the hallway. Clumsy hands pulled a pillow over his face. That's so loud. I swear I can see it. If it doesn't stop, this headache will crack my skull in two. Now, please be aware, I have no idea what's happening. I just decided because voice acting sounds much better than reading. So, while one man complained, another was already rushing to answer the door. How nice of him. Clearly, because he can see. You have a hangover, not a headache. Have mercy, Holly. I can't handle this today. You couldn't handle this yesterday. And I don't think you'll have a lobster's chance in boiling water of handling it tomorrow. Unsympathetic, but undeterred, Holly Faraday made his way toward the front door. He ignored the other speaker and their continued whining. Are we not named? Are we the other person in the front of the game? I don't know what this game is about. He sighed. The moaning wouldn't stop until the knocking did, and Faraday would have to be the one to take care of it. Opening up the door was quite a task. He muttered through a devious set of tongue-twisting charms, cracked a stick of chalk over the handle, and attached a frankly ludicrous amount of deadbolts. Okay, rereading that does look a lot more like ritual magic. Any interest in the novelty of ritual magic had worn off months ago. The seal broke, crisp air entered, full of the statically fall flavor. The what? The staticky flavor of fall? That's more like winter. I was shocked a bunch today by a light switch. Holly blinked as his eyes adjusted. He hadn't missed all that sunlight, nor the serious, stiffly disapproving faces of the people on the outside. A messenger was standing in the step, letter in hand. Whomever had sent it had been paid to deliver her. I'm sorry, I can't voice that. Urgent letter from Mr. Lud? Cal? Holly raised an eyebrow. They'd paid to have it hand-delivered, but not, it seemed, enough to know the recipient. Ludicale. Oh, Ludicale. Comprehension seemed to dawn in the messenger's face, quickly followed by the inevitable grimace of distaste. I see. Him. Faraday took a letter from his hand, gave it a once-over. It's not a bomb, is it? That got the jerk's attention. No, sir. It's a personal invitation. Really? Well, toss my oars. Thanks. Holly rummaged his pocket for a tip, and once that transaction was accomplished, set about resealing the door. Are you locking us in here forever? He didn't want to be responsible for anything escaping. Turn that up. Soon, the business was accomplished. All that was left was to find out what was in the letter. Harry. Quieter, please. You should get up. Open your mail yourself. Faraday could hear angry muttering as Harold got out of bed. He sounded irate, but at least he was up. I won't do it. I've done 2 before. It's also terribly demeaning. 2 stocking-clad feet met the ground. Then one of those feet failed to keep balance, and ground became acquainted with a pair of elbows and a forehead. Seances are just tasteless barlatrick. He clawed his way up to the doorframe, and Harold, Ludicale, stood as tall as he momentarily could. Oh, that's him. How dare they? They're speaking to a true alchemical genius. No, we're not a character. We're a man who can control the fabric of the human soul. Holly fluttered a letter at him. Why don't you try controlling the fabric of your pants, buddy? Harold took one moment to register the state of his undress, and that moment was all it took to puncture what little energy he had. Be that as it may, neither I nor anyone could show up and summon the souls of the dead. Their regrets or outstanding grievances. Perhaps I could summon those. But hang on. Harold. Oh, okay. But any vengeful presence strong enough to contract might kill the whole lot of them, rather than shake the table. Holly sighed again. Maybe it would have been better to leave Harold passed out on the chaise lounge. I'm sorry, I don't know words. Once the intro's over, I'm sure something will happen. After all, Harold couldn't be pedantic while passed out on the Chase? Chase? I'll tell this Bell person you say no, then. Harold waved a permissive gesture. Good. Don't call me unless a big one escaped. Took a while for anything to filter through the muck in his brain, and as a neuron finally made contact, Harold tripped again. Bell? As in Bernadette Bell, the author. Holly caught both Harold and the suddenly wild look in his eye. The famous author? Yeah. Managing, I'll remember what vague British voice I'm doing. Managing both Harold and the letter was certainly a handful, but Holly managed to reread the latter, which was to say, the letter. It says, Professor Ludicale, I request your presence at a party in my home this coming Saturday. I have heard tell of your incredible research into the supernatural sciences, and I need a man with your experience for the job. I can trust no one else with this important task. My regards, Bernadette Bell. Harold got to his feet, brushing himself off. Well, it would be that the pinnacle of rudeness is to decline. So, will you bring business cards to this? Or will you just pass out slips of labeled so they know your real job? Harold shook his head, hangover suddenly absent. How do you know Belle? She's been serialized for 2 years. Does that mean author? Writes those murder mysteries with the shockingly grisly means of death. Holly shrugged. An associate of hers was just murdered a few days ago. The irony kept it all over the papers. It's all coming together. They have no leads at all, claiming an imp might have been under the murder weapon. It's creepy to obsess about other people's business. You never know when you might need that information. We wouldn't want to make a faux pas if we met her. Fine. I guess that settles it. Even if you just said seances were fake. I mean, it's more complicated than that. And even if there's very little evidence that they're real, you never know what we might find out in the future. That's a longer way to say fake. So, they want a good ghost story for their party. What's wrong with that? It's, well, not deceptive, per se. It's fun for the guests if we all pretend it's real. That's the idea. Holly chuckled. Well then, I'm coming with you. Hang on. Hang on. What's his voice? You see, one of them is half drunken, and the other one is, well, it was proper, but I've lost it. Seeing you lie off, you know, maybe I should just read it. It's not like I'm saying it. Sounds like a show I don't want to miss. Plus, they said there'll be a dinner. I haven't got to see. I haven't gotten to eat something I didn't cook myself in ages. Harold chewed the inside of his cheek for a moment before responding. Just promise you won't embarrass me. Me? With you running around playing pretend about fake ghosts for a scrap of establishment acknowledgement. You really think I'm going to be the embarrassing one? Well, you don't exactly know how to dress. Holly didn't see fit to dignify that with a response. He turned around and left Harold standing in the hall in his undergarments. Indeed. It's been a week? Wow. What could have happened in a week? The whole murder planned. A week later, Faraday and Harold stood dwarfed by the massive mansion of Bernadette Bell. Sorry about the clicking, but I'm going to be using my mouse. Thank goodness I brought the big jar of salt. This place is going to need a lot to seal. If you're going to be faking the ghost thing, why bother sealing anything? I'm a professional, Holly. I am, at least, capable of sealing the building until sunrise. Sure you can stay up that late. Stepping onto the front porch, their feet passed over a metal grate. The strange device on the floor set off a ringing tone inside the house. Is this a Minecraft pressure plate? Do you think that's an it doorbell? That seems excessive. Not to mention expensive. Or maybe the place is rigged up with electricity? She must be even richer than I thought. How do I look? Fine. Really wish you'd have dressed in something nicer. This is the nicest stuff I have. Plus, it's not like clothes change who you are. Either they'll like you or they won't. Unsurprisingly, this did nothing at all to assuage Faraday's companion. Associate? Huh. Now there was no question. What was Harry Lucet? Ludus. Ah, frick. Hang on. Ludicale. Who was Harry Ludicale to him? What even were they anymore? Keeping track of Ludicale's social lives was one thing, but by this point, even finding a true label was beyond Faraday's capabilities, especially because he really didn't want to think about any of that right now. You two live with each other. Don't you understand anything? Just say that I'm your assistant. They won't care then. Oh, that only made it worse. Faraday tried again. So, you read a few of her books this week, right? Well, I read a bit. Define a bit. I fell asleep on the third page. I usually like seafaring stories, but it was so dreary. Don't look at me like that. There's going to be a play soon. I'll simply watch it when it comes out. But the short stories are good. I'm certain that they are. I agree. Short stories are amazing. You can tell me all about how the book was better once we've seen the show. Look, this first one sucks, but she's clearly never been on a boat before. But they get a lot better. Do they now? I wanted to come prepared, so I read a few. The sound of movement behind the door. The host herself, Bernadette Bell, opened the door. A robust woman in a fashionable dress. There was a touch of tiredness in her gaze, and a rasp in her throat. A stern elderly figure stood behind her. Looks evil. Could be her. Could be us. Oh, it's Dr. Ludicale? Oh, it's Dr. Ludikiel. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I haven't been feeling up to snuff lately. It's no trouble, Miss Bell. And please, call me Harold. Wow, you puff yourself up now. Harold, it is then. I'm glad you could make it. Sorry, but I'm gonna run out of voices. It might have been rather short notice, but for you, anything. I must confess to be something of a fan. Really? Really? And this is my assistant, Holly Faraday. Don't worry, I understand how valuable good help is. This is my editor, Detty Vance. Vance extended her wrist toward Harold. Her dress and demeanor were both firmly rooted in the prior century. So are you... Is it 1912? I was the one who told her about your work. Harold, no stranger to dusty old customs, kissed the back of Vance's hand. A pleasure to meet you both. Come on, don't just stand out here. I want to get started as soon as possible. I want to get started as soon as everyone else has arrived. Quick save. Miss Bell, I need some time, to prepare. I love that you kept this whole thing very mysterious. It suits a mystery writer like yourself. But I do need to know whom I'll be summoning. My friend, Gareth Canterbury. Such a recent death might be difficult to summon. If you can't do it, then please tell me now. I meant for an amateur it would be impossible. But for an experienced summoner like me, it shouldn't be a problem. Faraday leaned in to whisper, Harry, how the hell are you going to fake? Harold hissed back softly. Have you ever heard of hot ring? Harold puffed his chest out. He seemed filled head to toe with confidence. Of course, of lying, you're going to make a fool of yourself. Instead of trepidation and gin. We need to get a list of the deceased's personal traits and attachments so we can contact her properly. Faraday, take some notes for me. Harold thrust a leather-bound journal into Faraday's hands. Wait, this notebook is... Then he folded to a new page and started to write. Sometimes Faraday will take his notes on the people around him. These notes can be accessed anytime with a journal icon. Oh, well, I was clicking over there. Slivers. If found, please return to Harold Ludikiel. Peeps. I mean, Gareth isn't much of a gender-neutral name, but okay. Ow. Recently murdered. Undiscovered demonologist. Incredible work, my assistant. Okay. Bell turned to Vance for a moment, and while she was distracted, Faraday whispered, Harold. Harry, why are there notes on me? Oh, well, I started assembling all my notes on people into one notebook. Easy to keep on hand. Holly rolled his eyes and sarcasm dripped from his tone. Oh, of course. That makes perfect sense. No, it doesn't. Most people don't think to keep an insane little dossier of everyone they pass by. Well, my memory isn't what it used to be. You look 20. Maybe 30. What if I slip up and say something that accidentally touches upon a sore nerve and they never forgive me? Faraday took to furious scribbling. No, what are you scribbling? Most influential demonologist of the era, but has no motivation. His house is full of nightmares that are a pain in the ass to deal with, but he's the most notable one. Harold looked over Holly's shoulder and watched him write. Oh, very mature. While you're at it, Ed snores in his sleep to your page. Belle's laughter cut through their squabble. Don't you agree, Harold? I don't remember what her voice is. It's absolutely quite amusing. Harold had no idea what she'd been discussing with Vance, but people always liked to hear that they were funny. Miss Belle, I hate to divert you back to a sensitive subject, but could you tell me a little about your friend's career? Wait a minute, those are some large sideburns. It's important that I know what might tie her to this mortal plane. Belle didn't miss a beat, pride in her eyes as she responded. She was a fabulous illustrator. She worked on the cover art for the chain. She's not German. Okay. Faraday leaned towards Harold to whisper. The chain is the magazine and her stories are all serialized in. So would you say she liked her job? Loved it. She and I would head out to find scenes for her to paint, while I did some rough drafting. She and I met when she had to illustrate something from one of my stories for the cover. She took a lot of pride in her work. Some people even collected the journals just for their covers. That's pretty good. Quite a feat to say. Sometimes the journals sold just because of her artwork. She wasn't well liked by the heads of the journal. No, she wasn't well liked by the heads of her journal. She just told it like it is. Management always hates that. I just wanted to be clear. Maybe the job didn't love her as much as she loved it. I suppose. Yes, tell us. Constance, a little bear? What a piano. Who's playing? In the parlor, there were two guests already chatting away. Or rather, one of them was endlessly, excitedly prattling on, while the other loomed silent. He had a hole in his chest. Faraday and Harold attempted not to stare. They failed, utterly. Belle followed their gazes and chimed in. May I present Gus Downey? They're here to help me with some details about future writing ideas. Is it a girl? I can't do a high voice no matter how much my mind says I can. One moment. That's embarrassing. Let's do it anyway. They're a hitman. Inspiration is vital for a good story. And who would know more about murder than that? Murder has a D in it, not a T. So tacky. No, hang on, wrong person. I've never done this before. So tacky. Faraday took note of the new guests. Yes, please. Tell me. A hitman? That's not helpful. The doorbell rang, and Belle grabbed Vance's hand. Oh, another arrival. And with that, Belle hurried Vance away, sounding slightly winded. By the way, if any developer's watching this, I mean the developer, I think it's one, sorry that I'm ruining your game. Finally, I was starting to think it would just be me and this guy all night. The taller person said nothing while you two weren't together, but the lack of response did seem to slow the woman down. So, who do we have here? Two of you, right? She prodded at them with her cane. I thought that was a sword, thwacking them about the ankles. Oh, is she blind? No. Or is it just one person with a really big inn? Oh, no, it's two of us. So you can speak. Well, that's helpful. Yes, I'm Dr. Harold Ludical, and I'll be performing the seance this evening. Man, she wasn't kidding when she said she was getting an expert. Shame it had to be you, though. And just who do you think you are? Harold did his best to shush Faraday, but the woman heard him anyway and could scarcely hold back a peal of arrogant laughter. Me? I'm Daedalus. Harry gave an audible groan of disappointment, which only served to make her grin more broadly. Yep, that Daedalus. If you've seen a ship without marking, then I designed it. Even if you haven't seen the marking, we made half the ships in the harbor, so, you know, you're welcome. For, like, all the free trade you enjoy each day. Faraday gritted his teeth and decided not to let the shipwright get away with a slight. Big deal, so you made 1 or 200 ships. Good for you. I've been on better. Oh, big words, mister. It's Faraday. Holy Faraday. Deleuze shrugged. Never heard of you. Faraday sucked in a breath to tell Deleuze exactly who he was. But Harold lifted a hand and gave him a desperate, pleading look. Instead, he looked down at the journal sullenly and scrawled his ire into it instead of saying anything aloud. Oh no. Dea? That's what I said. Oh. Harry turned to the taller fellow, hoping to have a little more luck with them. Hello. A pleasure to meet you. The figure gave the slightest of nods, and then stared at Harold, offering no further greeting or conversation. Harold's mind had half a dozen reasons to why Goose might choose to commit this social slight, and how each of them was probably Harold's own fault. He was so wrapped up in the preemptive guilt that he almost missed it when they did speak. Hey. A great listener, this one. I was telling him about how marriage is a scam. Harold did not have time to ask what could have caused such a topic to come up. He just got straight to nodding. Yes, spending all your life with just one person would be so limiting. I disagree. Commitment is nice. That's not to say that life partnership doesn't have its upsides. Faraday rolled his eyes. You getting dizzy over there? Miss Deleuze, did you happen to know anything about Gareth Canterbury? Just that she died and that people are talking about it. Daedalus gave a carefree shrug. How about you, Goosey? Wasn't me. Indeed. But what did he say? Wasn't them? Outside the room, there was a littling, melodic cry of joy. Deleuze's head turned attentively. Please, tell me who that sounds like who it is. I can't read fast. The sound of fawning excitement traveled down the hall, and before long the host arrived, meeting her next guest in tow, somebody who I don't have room for in my vocal repertoire. The door swung open, revealing a figure swathed in pink silks and sheer bead fabric. Her eyes shone with an abundant delight. This is gonna be awful. I'm sorry, in advance. Harold gave a slight gasp of enthusiasm. It's Clarice Myers. Who? If you can't take an interest in current events, then we'll never have anything to talk about. We can talk about the current state of the mold in your kitchen. Well, that's also embarrassing. Oh, your parlor is simply beautiful. Isn't it the inspiration for the Duchess Baker's parlor? How could you tell? I've been rereading all of her scenes. The way that the bookshelf is positioned, and the pattern of the chair. Yes, I picture her scheming all of her nefarious plots right in the chair over there. Ow. The energetic young lady crossed the room to run her hand along the fabric of the arm. Oh, it gives me perfectly wicked vibe. Can I sit in it? You certainly can. The young lady settled into the chair and died, and the innocent features of her face contorted into a sinister glare. She threw back her head and gave a laugh so chilling. Goosebumps rose on the back of Faraday's neck. Oh. Try as you might, for as long as you live, you'll never prove it was me, Constance Little Bear. Belle's jaw dropped. Exactly how I imagine her. I love it. Miss Myers, I think you're disturbing the other guests. The young lady hopped up from the chair, eyes once again wide and apologetic. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm just so thrilled to see it for myself. No, Debbie, stop being such a spoilsport. Miss Myers, I couldn't have asked the director to cast a better duchess. Yeah, are you kidding? A previous performance, right here. Sounds like she knows how to party, unlike the rest of you chumps. Dea poked Groose in the knee with her cane. That's mean. I feel like I've seen this guy before. But I have deja vu about every 5 seconds, so I'm sure that's not correct. When are you going to start doing an evil laugh? That seems like something a real hitman would have. Better if they don't hear you coming. This guy is starting to creep me out. Shh, don't let them hear you. Belle and Myers, however, were still off in their own little world, fawning over each other. Oh, I hate to be a bother, but Miss Belle, can I please have you sign this copy of the chain? I have all the ones with your stories in them, but this is my favorite. Constance racing to solve the murder before the train pulls into the next station, all while knowing she might be found by the conductor. It was so thrilling. Belle took the less than pristine magazine and unclipped a gleaming bronze fountain pen from her pockets. Her signature was large and loopy, in striking indigo ink. I use this pen for all my manuscripts, too. This ink just seems like it makes my pen flow faster. Myers' eyes sparkled with admiration as she took the signed copy back. She stared in awe as if she had just seen magic. Belle seemed to remember that the rest of her guests were there. Oh, did he? Oh, let me introduce Miss Clarice Myers. Loved you in that one with the flower girl and the electrocution lessons. Deleuze hopped to the front of the group, quickly shaking Miss Myers' hand. Didn't think you had a villain in you, but you sure proved me wrong. Oh, thank you. I promise I can be very evil when I want to be. This is annoying. Vance looked over at Clarice, finally giving an approving nod. My dear. I never actually. I was just a different British voice. My dear, are you wearing an imp in your hat? Oh yes, I'm awfully glad that someone noticed. What is an imp? It's all the fashion uptown. Watch. Small creature rose from her hat, and quietly, with the poise of a ballerina, began to dance. They don't look happy. Clarice Myers sang a crystalline soprano, weaving in a hauntingly pretty melody. The others all stopped what they were doing and crowded around to watch them perform. Vance smiled, and Deleuze stopped fidgeting, an ear turned intently up to listen. The little imp moved with grace, elegance, and far too many joints. After a moment, however, everyone died. The end. Harold crossed the room quickly, pulling chalk from his jacket pocket. Miss, allow me to. Myers did not let a hint of awkwardness or effrontery show. Oh dear, don't mind. That happens all the time. See? She can make a new one. The little imp placed a tiny hand to its cheek, as if laughing off the embarrassment. And its mask reformed. Ah, what a clever little trick. The imp bowed, then hid away, back among the flowers of Miss Meyer's hat. How many other people have imps? Harold slunk back over to Faraday's side. Do you think it's okay? Though he had whispered, Deleuze must have been feeling particularly nosy, because she chirped up for all to hear. Of course she's okay. Everybody's imps do weird stuff sometimes. It doesn't mean anything. Wow, that's mean. Quite right. One look at the beautiful imp and no one can tell no one can easily tell that harbors a beautiful... I can't read what she's saying. Hang on. One look at a beautiful imp and one can easily tell that it harbors a beautiful soul. The imp is the pure expression of an artist's creative drive, her ability. One shouldn't trivialize it. There was a general agreement amidst the room, and the others took to chatting. Yes, well, I would like a mystery. Harold wandered over to the far corner and wondered if he could summon something that could drag him straight off the face of the earth. Is that really what people think nowadays? That their imps are their creativity? Their souls? They break them out for fun little shows? You were gone a while, Holly. With all that research, and the public just traded one lie for another. Look at this journal you got me writing in. It's my old notebook. I'll just open it up and show you my notes. Leave it be. Her imp is advanced, to be sure, but maybe nothing will happen. If you try to tell them this darling off the stage has a demon, that if she uses it like this, it will make it stronger and more dangerous, will be mocked and maybe even forcefully removed. Aren't we responsible for at least trying to correct them? If someone gets hurt and we said nothing? Faraday was no stranger to Harold's haggard, tired expressions, but as Harold looked at him, his eyes communicated a fatigue so deep it must have taken years to accumulate. I hate this city. They'd eat a rock if you told them it was an oyster. Holly's notes. Should have a good time, so to summarize the natural reputation, demons aren't just monsters that lurk in the woods or destroy small villages. Everyone might have a really tiny demon running around hiding their keys or eating their socks or something. Oh no, their poor socks. We humans contribute to them via negative emotions. The difference between a harmless or harmful demon is how powerful we let them get. But what if, pause or effect, we could put the demons in some place where they can't feed off of us. Professor Ludikill has developed a system for capturing renegade or stray demons. We can use sealing alchemy to confine the demons to objects, but we absolutely must take responsibility for our own demons. The professor's goal is for each person to have the option to seal their own demon deep within themselves. It's themselves. The professor has already successfully done this on 2 people. Show photographs of my eyes. Have the professor comment on his own suppression. Once it's done, let's get that funding. Okay. Meeting went too well. They refused to treat the process as a medical procedure and talked about rebranding demons. Harry said that we should be open to whatever gets us the funds we need. I'm not going to lie to these assholes for money. Screw this. Let's get out of this room and start sealing the mansion. Good idea. If I have to spend one more minute in here, I'm going to lose it. Whoa. Gameplay. Clue? Let's head to the boiler room. They took a staircase down and found themselves in a boiler room. Harold got right to work, while Faraday lingered, peeling over the railing at the body holder. Harold hurried over to the windows and set to sealing them. He had been in front of a classroom. He might have added a touch of flourish to his hand motions. He would have explained the process in affectionate detail and called out his words loudly, emphasizing unnecessary symbols, in order to add pomp and majesty. But instead, he huffed 3 quick breaths onto the small windows and traced symbols in the foggy glass. He closed his eyes and focused on the roiling, abundant anxiety within his gut, and without a word, pressed it all down. The glass grew hot under his touch. A quick dash of salt, and it was done. One more seal down, while Faraday lingered, peering over the railing. The boiler was immense, large enough to fit a carriage inside. That thing's huge. Why would you need that big of a boiler? Why make a room like this so big? It's a big house, but it is quite something to look at. It must cost a lot to heat this place. Can we heat your place more this winter? If this job leads to another one, maybe. If you say no, I'm sleeping in your bed. You stay in your own room. All right. Let's peek at their office. This must be where she writes. Good to know at least one room here isn't for decoration. Not everything has to be utilitarian. It does on a ship. It's not a ship. You're such a braggart. Gallivanting off on ocean travels, while the rest of us are stuck to boarding ourselves up in dry study. It's not like I got a lot of time above deck. You think I had a lovely time working on my tan? He's tanner than you. Ugh, and you don't even have the grace to look back on it fondly. You're a fundamentally ungrateful person. Says the guy who hasn't washed his own laundry in 3 months. Harold set about to sealing these windows too, while he was in deep concentration. Oh, you boys already got in here? I came up to open the door for you. I usually leave this room locked. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. We were just about to finish here. It's quite all right. I leave anything important double-locked. You wouldn't have found it even if you tried. Harold's teeth were grinding loud enough for Belle to hear them across the room. Please, Dr. Ludical, you don't need to be so on edge all the time. I assure you, I'm already aware of your history, but I have the utmost confidence. Well, I think that Faraday can handle this room on his own. I'll just head along, shall I? Faraday sprinkled down the last line of salt on the windowsill, and Harry rushed out of the room, cheeks burning with shame. Belle carefully relocked the room behind them, and tucked the key into her sleeve. How did we get inside, then? Ah, yes. You. Of all the ridiculous... Vance put her hand down on the piece of paper when they entered, but left a small, vibrantly violet corner visible. When she moved to grasp it the rest of the way, she dropped it. Faraday rushed over to pick it up, with a smirk on his face, gonna pick it up. It says, Bernadette Belle, tonight we are coming to steal, and snatched it away and crumpled the paper up. I'm sorry, but this is a letter that slipped under the door. Miss Belle didn't want it to distract from the party tonight, so she asked me to get rid of it. Yeah, that thing looks like it caused some distraction. She gets threats sometimes. It's nothing serious. Well, I will be finished sealing this place in a bit. It will mean no one can leave or enter, so she should be safe. Vance did not seem mollified by this. She waved her hand. Don't let that soup boil over. Don't let that soup boil over. Of course. Harold nearly fell over the table in his rush to comply. Not you, the help. Or rather, the other help. Harold watched as an imp the size of a very large oven. If that's a demon, we're in trouble. It walked slowly, as if moving at all was a chore. The heat emanating from it, even from yards away, made Faraday start to sweat. It opened its mouth and a whistling filled the room. Faraday grimaced and covered his ears. The large imp removed a tea kettle, poured a cup, and put the kettle back in its mouth. As soon as its mouth was closed, the sound stopped. Vance took the cup, sipping it, surveying the room. On the table, a knife-like imp was chopping some leafy garnish. This is not good. Oh, a flying knife all over the place on its own. Watching that isn't disconcerting in the least. You needn't fear. It is all well under control. So, the height of technology allows people to finally take a hard, good look inside. And what have we done? Sold them to the highest bidder. What's next? Legalizing the black market for organs? These are just rental imps. Some hard-working people, through no fault of their own, very much need that money. Belle considers it magnanimous to at least help those people with their debts. She rents from these people often, but they go back to their originators after a month. It's their decision if they want to rent them out again. It's messed up either way. Vance turned away to check on the other imp that was washing the dishes. Dinner is almost ready. If you don't hurry, the food will be cold for everyone. Harold finished sealing the windows, and the two men left. I have seen this game before. Probably when it was early access or whatever. As the two returned to the parlor, they found Clarice admiring the decor. Miss Myers, do you know anything about Gareth Canterbury? The illustrator? She was Miss Belle's dearest confidant, and she was murdered. Terrible how the papers keep sensationalizing it and hounding her for interviews. She clearly has nothing to do with it when I look side-eyed, and yet they're harassing her just because she's famous and writes about murders. All just to sell papers. It's so heartbreaking. Thank you. It's disgusting that people want to wring money out of other people's tragedies. Dreadful. I feel so sorry for Miss Belle. I hope you will all be gentle with her feelings tonight. She's probably going to take her mind off the whole thing. Holly clicked his tongue. I don't think she is. She hired me to summon her ghost. That seems so ghoulish. Literally. Well, this party is getting better every minute. And it will only improve now that I'm here. Gorgeous. The group turned to see the new arrival. I'm admittedly intrigued. That's some big talk. A man waltzed into the room with the utmost confidence. Oh my god. He's smoking. He snorted a coffee hair? A lilac waistcoat that was so out of style it bordered on a kind of archaic chic. And a pair of long, tapered ears. Faraday barely noticed the others enter the room. Vance supported a slightly winded Belle off her arm, helping her to a chair. I'm sorry? Being too boring would literally kill me, so I'm very motivated. Oh, your ears. Are you a fae? I've only heard about them in books. What do his ears look like? Dee prodded Goose again with her... Oh, she's blind. Yeah, I thought so. Cute. Subjective descriptions don't help. They're pointy. And very charming. Charming is subjective. Nonsense. Charming is very, objectively very, very me. I'm Lupine Flowers. Lupine? Lupine? I'm gonna say Lupine. And no, it isn't every day you meet a fae. Vance squinted at Lupine. I don't actually remember inviting you. I wasn't invited, but I thought that was so rude. Such a collection of adorable people, and me not invited. Shame. Plus, I was friends with Canterbury. Gary was so good to me, I found out you were going to be contacting her tonight. Call me romantic, but I couldn't miss this last chance at seeing her. It couldn't hurt. And Gareth was so quiet. I didn't even know she had any other friends. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Well, if you're certain. Debbie, you should know better than anyone else never to turn away a fae. Nonsense. As an expert, I know that all fae are sweet, adorable, wholesome creatures. They are born amidst the cabbage patch, and tenderly rock their children to sleep at night. Indeed. Why did you get that nonsense? It sounds like something out of a Deborah Vance storybook. Deborah Vance. Sorry. I'm thinking as I'm reading. can you get dinner started, Debbie? You have the cooking and serving imps in the kitchen, don't you? Of course. Please be careful. Lupin bounced on his toes and turned to Belle with a friendly grin. What an odd pair, you and her. Her books are all old, stuffy, pointless fairy stories, and you write exciting, gruesome murders. Witnessing such a wild faux pas, Harold was white in the face, murmuring, "He knew that was Deborah Vance and still said that to her face. Oh, God." Little prissy Miss Cabbage Patch edits your tales of murder. Ha! You're just full of wonderfully vibrant ideas. I could see it in your eyes and in your writing. Lupin looked at Belle with the most adoring smile to accompany the compliment. Whatever could a frump like that boring table? Whatever could a frump like that bring to the table that you didn't already have in spades? Oh. Myers hopped like a child in a classroom, one eager to be called on by the teacher. Miss Belle, do you mind if I tell him? Go right ahead. It's infinitely more fun to hear my accomplishments coming from someone else's mouth. Myers dove in. Miss Belle published the first mystery under a pen name. That's one word. You see, she wasn't confident in her work. Though the first one was a major hit, it got people excited about the characters, and she started to write more about stories. A couple of years ago, she got picked up by the chain. That's when I found out about her. And that's when I started reading about her as well. You can get the chain in Arcadia, if you know the right guys. Well, eventually, Miss Belle felt confident enough to reveal her real name. Miss Belle was a brand new writer, but as you know, Miss Vance has been around for about 100 years. Looking at those crow's feet. You only get brown creases and that bad from a scowling all the time. Miss Vance has been around for a while longer, so she has a lot of publishing connections, and she helped Miss Belle get into industry. Faraday balanced the journal against his arm to add more about people. Friends with a... Oh, yes, right. Well, according to him... Sorry. Faraday balanced moves. When Faraday looked up, Lupin was already behind him, peering over his shoulder. What? Another cute writer? I'm going to get overstuffed with stories tonight. They're just notes. Oh, are you crazy? Are you casing the joint? Belle does have some amazing things, though. She's been collecting occult items. That's what I read. You can see some in her gorgeous curio case over there. Deleuze, golden goose. You didn't tell me about those. You didn't tell me about what's in the curio case. I didn't look. Well, how about I give you all a tour? Finally. This pair of silver rods are supposed to be useful for finding hidden items. This spike is my most recent purchase. The seller said it was the tooth of a toxic shark demon. Ooh, Goosey, is it stained with blood? Goose grinned. Nah, but it's about the size of your fist. Whoa! This set of candles is from the first successful angel summoning. Faraday leaned over to whisper to Harold, that's not a thing, right? Some demons are good liars. These coins are said to be clues that lead to a treasure map. Something for me to keep busy once I retire, I suppose. Invite me along for that one. I definitely want to read the Treasure Discoverer on my resume. Down here is a device that reacts to ghostly presence. I plan to test it tonight. Miss Belle, don't get your hopes up. Devices like that tend to be completely fake. Unlike Harry here. Faraday muttered under his breath. This last one is a personal favorite. It's a listening device that can pick up people's inner thoughts that are floating around in the air. I've heard a lot of very interesting things in the ether. Incredible, but you must hear such strange things. They can be strained and difficult to decipher, but they really can push me right through when I'm feeling stuck. The inner mind is such an intriguing place. With the others distracted, Harold shook his head in disbelief. The doorbell chimed again, and I frown as I think of another voice. Most of the group stayed crowded around that case, admiring the items, but Faraday and Harold pulled back to talk privately. If you're going to be selling fake seances, then we might as well get into the faked artifact business too. Demon sharks. Holly curled his fingers with both hands, pantomimed a large pair of jaws. He chopped them on Harold's arm. And for the briefest of moments, Harold smiled, but it quickly gave way to his usual demeanor. I certainly hope they're all fake. What if one of those actually severed... What if one of those was actually someone's severed limb? It wasn't a kitchener bad enough, but at least they're under Vance's control. Nobody's approved and rented out the stuff in the cabinet. If one got up and got loose... Speaking of getting loose, maybe we should get to sealing those windows. I don't want to miss dinner because I'm hanging off the roof pouring salt down for you. I want to at least meet all the guests first, and we've barely found anything out about Canterbury. True, I guess you need to make this look as convincing as possible. Though looking at that case, she seems like the type to believe you can move without rowing. Hey! Harold narrowly avoided both a heart attack and a face plant straight into Faraday's sweater. We'll be right back. I'm going off on a little unauthorized tour with a cutie on my arm. No telling, okay? You only get one peek. You only get to peek into other people's houses on such a rare occasion. Deleuze and Lupin slid out the door before anyone could give any kind of objection. Damn, that Fay was the only one who claimed he knew Canterbury. It would be great to know about what kind of thing that Belle's expecting to ask her. I would assume it's something about the murder. That, or confessing some sort of feelings. That would be a lot easier, if not more ethical. Bernadette Belle entered the room for just a moment, followed by a man. Okay, that's better. His boots made a loud, crisp sound as he walked. Unless we are graced by more Fae, this is our final guest, Lieutenant Marek Noack. The man who now darkened the parlor doorway caused Holly to narrow his eyes. You know him. When you've been at sea as long as I have, you know one, you know them all. Noack shot Clarice a smile. It's good, hang on. It's good to see I have some other guests I can recognize. I went to see your first show on a date with the woman who would be my future wife. She loves your work. Oh, how sweet. Have you got yourself someone special? Oh, no, I'm not interested in that sort of thing. At least not in real life. Eh? A girl as pretty as you. Are you not married? You're very flattering, Lieutenant. But as I said, I'm not really interested. You don't have to come up with excuses. Like I said, you look very... You couldn't afford the Duchess's tea, let alone upkeep her lifestyle. Lifestyle? I must go. My flock of peacocks requires a good, solid tutting. Myers skipped out the door. Noack made to follow. What are you doing? But Faraday moved quickly in the way. Hey, Noack, didn't you say you were married? Butt out. What does it matter to you who she is or isn't interested in? No one was talking to you, Porky. That was the wrong voice. You're the Porky one, what a pig. Now step aside or I'll... Now step aside or I'll step on you. I emphasized the wrong word. Faraday's ankle jerked aside at an odd angle, and he barely kept it from twisting. His hands trembled. Leave her alone. Luckily for Faraday, Belle chose that moment to return to the parlor. Lieutenant Noack, I ask you please not to use your imp on my guests. Of course, Miss Belle. That's one dangerous creature. They're all dangerous. Not at all. Not at all. It only helps make sure people listen to what they're told. It's essential to have discipline in the military. But we're not in the military. I was just giving you a little scare as a joke. I wasn't gonna do anything. We're all friends here. Eric shoved Faraday a bit roughly, knocking him off balance. Harry managed to catch his arm. Holly, don't make a scene. I don't think I could if I wanted to. What the hell kind of species is that? See, he's fine. So, you said all imps are dangerous? Of course, any imp could destroy a man. Well, I assume that means yours is quite ferocious. Because if you had a demon, I'd have to do my duty by the law. I just see things. Noah gave a low, deep chuckle. I will be sure to beware then. Harry cleared his throat and tried to pull his friend aside, out of the line of fire. We should probably finish getting this place sealed. I'll take my assistant with me. Harold gave an apologetic sigh and smiled to Belle. Belle returned it with a warm glance of her own. It shone genuine. Why are you friends with this man? Thank you, Dr. Ludikill. Ludikill? Now that's Ludikill? Isn't he under house arrest? Laughter interrupted from outside the parlor. Whatever Noah had about to say, he was soon miles away. His attention had been completely diverted. I'll show you, because I really mean anywhere I'm locked out of. Bam! Dear, so good to see you. The sound of Lieutenant Noak's voice, Deleuze froze, and turned to walk right back out the way she came. So, Mr. Flowers, need a light of your cigarettes? Oh no, you'd be amazed at what I can do with fire. Let's find a big room and I'll show you. Faraday smirked as they left. 2 for 2 with the ladies tonight, huh? Seems like she's not that into you, deckhand. Are you trying to get your ankle broken? What is wrong with you? She's just being playful. It's her way. Holly, let's go. Harold picked up his large container of salts and the pair left the room. One moment. I want to tie that guy to an anchor and throw him into a raging storm. As far as I could tell, it seemed like Deleuze would probably help you. So would most of my old crewmates. You know, the salad ratio is all off here. Too much law. What if we called in some of them? Please don't get us into trouble here, Holly. You promised you weren't going to embarrass me. Sorry, I didn't know that it was embarrassing to stand up for yourself. You know what I mean. Don't get in Noak's face and make a big scene. You might not have a spine, but I can still locate mine. An officer like that could actually hurt us. He could hurt you. Fine, I'll try not to rile him up. But if he starts it, I can't promise I won't fight back. Mom and the rest of the crew didn't raise me to bow to guys like that. They finished sealing the mansion. They were barely done before it was time for dinner. Vance's carefully chosen seating took some shuffling to fix. Faraday disregarded the name as cards as a suggestion and sat down next to Harold. Deleuze switched seats at the last moment, leaving Clarice next to Merrick. Why? Lupin didn't even have a name card, but in the end, the guests all took their seats at the table and the smell of roasted garlic and juicy turkey already floating down the hall. Vance wheeled in a cart with lovely ivy-patterned cloth. Atop it was a large tureen of soup. When she opened the lid, a fragrant cloud of steam billowed out of it, and she dished bowls. Belle glanced to check that everyone had gotten their soup, but started shortly afterward, prompting the others to begin to eat as well. Clarice, I must apologize. I haven't been able to assist you in your character workshops. It's quite all right. Thank you for understanding. These rewrites are so extensive. It's my responsibility to get you the best script possible. I assume she's dying. But the director says that he's assembled the finest cast of his career. People are pretty excited for it all out of town. I've heard my patrons talking about it, but the show is a hot topic in the shipyards too. They said you might be touring with the show if it does well. Yes, I've always wanted to travel around the country, maybe even around the world. But it's so expensive and scary to do alone. Oh, just imagining that glamorous tour. Meeting stars, getting a fan letters buried over the ocean just to tell me how much they loved the show. It would be a dream come true to have so many people see me perform. Lupin ran a spoon around the bowl, swirling the soup. He made a small whirlpool in it, and the broth slashed over the side. He didn't bring the spoon to his lips. Does he not like garlic? Is he a vampire? I have a lot to go over this evening, but while we eat, we should at least try to keep it light. So I think we should ask Goose the question any person would have for someone in their profession. Where did you get the big hole in your chest from? How do you get jobs? You mean jobs? Killing people? Yes. It's not as fun as you're hoping. I had a boss. He told me who to go after. That's it. What do you mean you had a boss? What happened to him? The same thing happens to everyone eventually. Retirement? Essentially. So handsome and mysterious. Lupin cooed at Goose. Goose stared down at their soup bowl. Lieutenant Nowak laughed and pointed the hole in Goose's middle. Well, looking at you, he took a severance package. Goose took their time slurping up some soup before responding. You should have seen the other guy. Eh? Goosey, what's that creep talking about? I'm not all here. I'm partly somewhere else. Where? Sold my imp a while back, like the other folks. It left a hole. Mine's kinda hard to hide, though. Hell if I know where the imp is now. Vance called from across the table. Who? Who? Hang on, there's too many people. I think it's him. Yes. Language. Sorry, I'm just saying if I knew where that part was, I would be there too. Lupin leaned his head back in his chair and let out a whine. I'm famished. Can't someone tell us a good story already? Anyone weird family secrets? A saucy romance? A neat gender? Deleuze finished her glass of wine. Ludikill trans his gender. Well, that's certainly something to scream about. Don't do the pun, Harold. I swear it's not as funny as you... Why, yes. You see, at its core, alchemy is the study of transmutating oneself. Oh no, I think that Master Lupin is looking for more of the unfashionable genders. His throat tightened, and Harold squeaked about something so high and soft only Holly could hear it. I want to die. You can die next week. That's what you said last week. Lupin pouted and crossed his arms. Nah, give me something else. Something really interesting, Mr. Seance Guy. You haven't said much. Tell me your story. The quiet ones always make me curious. Nothing much to tell. Don't be so modest, Ludikill. It would be rude to leave our Fey guest hungry. Though maybe you're worried that he'd throw up your story. Lupin, are you saying you really haven't heard of Professor Ludikill and that whole scandal? Can't say that I have. He basically invented this whole imp craze. It was a mistake, sure, but you can't be that hard on the guy for not knowing all the consequences of your research from the start. I think they're lovely. Imps aren't a mistake. No one is mad at Ludikill for that. Imps are useful, and now we can get a good long look at everyone's true self for using them. And we can also tell when someone's been lying and wanting to prey upon the innocent people around them. Especially when they slip up and expose their true nature at an event with thousands in attendance. Oh, and what was that? Silverware clattered. Oops, dropped my damn spoon. Language. As I was saying, Everyone used to think very highly of Ludikill. But the city wised up quick when we all saw... Oops. A hand smacked into a bowl, overturning. You're not going to stop him forever. He's going to break your arm. I'm not saying that. Faraday flushed Harold a smile. That was if he hadn't felt so very nauseous. Well then, a gentleman can be... The gentleman with the very pale hair. You must have some stories. Just asking for a little appetizer. Oh, right. So one time we were up in the Lake of Frost. Coldest I've ever been. I felt like I had ice in my lungs. I had 3 blankets on, yet the frost still got through. The boat was pitching around the waves, rocking like it was about to flip over. We would have died in that water. It was freezing. But I still finished my research notes and I wrote a letter. So you did nothing. It was an excellent letter. I still have it. Noak skewered something on his fork. It's real cute the way little guys get that excited about travel. He goes on one boat, and now he's got a lifetime of naval experience. It was one boat for multiple years, but go on. Noak ignores the interjection. Now me, he snorted. I got a whole fleet of ships to surrender. I read about that in the paper. I bet that paper didn't tell you how he did it. Vance barely raised the volume of her voice, but her stern tone carried. No politics at the table, sirs. No offense, but I think you will need to work on your storytelling. If we let them fight, it could make for a good story. Absolutely not. Okay, let me give you guys a good one. So I had this friend. She was in the worst relationship ever, basically. She had a controlling, overprotective father, and only one friend. The friend was basically a nobody. She figured that if she married him, she could get out of the house, and maybe your big fancy family name might help him out. You know, get him up a few ranks in the military. Noak gave a cough. It sounded like the growl of some large beast. I don't think that story is suitable for dinner either. Lupine's eyes flittered from Deleuze to Noak and back. That's such a shame for your friend. If she needs someone to comfort her, I know just the guy. Deleuze trailed a finger around the rim of her wine glass. Well, he wouldn't happen to be extremely charming, would he? Oh, he is. Now let's talk about something else. I agree. Vance stood up to dish the main course, a large roasted turkey, to all of the guests, at Vance's command. A small, razor-thin imp carved neat cuts of the carcass. Oh, why don't we all have Debbie tell us about Faye? Vance kept her eyes firmly locked on her work. I may have been working from older source books, but it was a long time ago. Embellishment for the sake of the reader is normal. And an artist can find herself sorely limited by facts. Don't you worry, I don't care. I think it's funny. I can tell you've certainly increased the number of people who asked me if I have come from a cabbage field. And it's great to see the look on their face when I tell them, not I. I was born from the little dewdrops on a spider's web, and carried a little mushroom as an umbrella. I feel like I remember getting that story read to me. They were real popular, but now only kids and old ladies like that stuff. I just start with them a long time ago. What do you write now? The carving imp went through a bone. It gave out a loud little cry, and Harold flinched at the sound. You wouldn't understand how frustrating it is to be limited by what readers expect of you. Faraday had spent enough time procrastinating on his papers to feel sympathetic. Yeah, writing isn't that easy, but I'm sure you've learned a lot since your early work. I mean, at least your stories are probably better than that first one Belle wrote. That boat one is terrible, am I right? Tearing down one person's work to boost another reflects very poorly on your character. Miss Vance, you needn't worry so. Even Miss Belle says the first one isn't that good. The director and Belle are having to rewrite it completely for the stage show. Belle laughed good-naturedly and hit a palm down on the tabletop. Yes, it takes some time to find your feet. Vance, my darling, please do put a little special thanks in the credit of your foreword if you use my mushroom umbrella idea, okay? I don't mind if you use it, but I want proper credit. Vance looked to be at the end of her rope, embarrassment and annoyance plain as on her severe features. I'll be sure to keep that in mind. The somewhat adversarial chatter continued until the guests were all sitting with plates that were empty. Some stomachs full, some weren't. Vance stacked the plates onto a rolling cart with the ivy cloths, and a serving whip wheeled away. You have a lot of imps here. This has been more fun than I thought it would be. But if you all follow me to the parlor, it's time for the main event. The guests all settled back into the parlor. Belle took a slow, contemplative sip of her sherry. She looked over at Harold, smiling coolly. Hang on, I need water. Harold's nerves had been shot all night, but Faraday could see him beginning to ease up. Harold had always been the sort of person to comply with what was desired of him. His ruin had been quite a shock to all, and he'd never come close to recovering. Nowadays, people wanted to conveniently forget that Ludicale existed. They wanted his unsightly little tale to be over. How do you appease the people around you when they'd all, politely, rather you did not exist anymore? There was a lurking, obvious answer. But tonight there was another, much more agreeable way to please the people around him. And a bit of the old Harold was in his eye again. The lecturer, whose pompous sense of self-worth was only outstripped by a genuine awe of those around him. A man with boundless energy for showcasing the things he loved. Sometimes it had been a bit much. It was hard to keep up with him. For Faraday, Harold's continued assertions in the importance of every little thing may have been fatiguing. But in those bygone days, Harold would look over at Faraday, and Faraday would remember that there was someone Harold adored most of all. Vinegar, you. He did his best to employ the memory and not think about the years that came afterward. I brought Dr. Ludicale here for a chance to speak with my good friend Canterbury. I have a lot I want to say to her, but I want to know one thing more than anything. Who killed her? I'm going to learn the murderer's name, straight from the ghost of my friend herself. My goodness, Miss Belle. Such a gruesome thing to discuss. Wasn't she burned up? What a horrible way to die. This is the only way I'll be getting any valuable information or closure. I know the police in this city. Understandable conclusion. They never solved my father's murder either. Not exactly competent. Belle nodded. Dr. Ludicale, I give you the floor. You look very confident, don't you? Thank you, Miss Belle. And now I will explain how. I must ask, isn't something like this dangerous? That makes me want to try it even more. If I'm nervous, can I hold your hand, please, Mr. Military Man? Hey there! Hold my hand! Myers shook her hand and clasped her hands. I don't want to be haunted. Harold cleared his throat, and when he spoke, it was with the same warm tone he'd once used to reassure failing students. My dear, I assure you, every person in this room is under my protection. Faraday found it easy to slip back into the role of assistant professor. He could almost pretend that we were going back to their office afterward. Believe me, it's completely safe. I'll have you all hold hands. Everything was fine and back to normal. There he was, Dr. Harold Ludicale, alchemist and professor of demonology. The energy of summoning something like this needs at least 2 people to dilute the strength. And then old Harry was spouting the most inane bullshit imaginable. The years catching up and descending into him like a collapsing roof. We need to focus our thoughts on the people who have died. Miss Belle and anyone else who knew the victim should try to think specifically of her. Once we've all linked hands, imagine Canterbury as vividly as possible. Harold stood up and put out his hands. Faraday took one, and, even if reluctantly, the whole party linked up hands. Lupin gave Deleuze an extra squeeze as she laughed. Now we will go around counterclockwise. I want you each to say her name, one at a time. I'll start. Gareth Canterbury. Gareth Canterbury. Gareth Canterbury. Gareth Canterbury. Gareth Canterbury. Gareth Canterbury. Gareth Can... Scream noise. What happened? The light went out. Please don't let go of my hand. Who just bumped me? A cacophony of boots, heels, and shoes sounded against the floorboards. Now get the hell off of me! You're the one clinging to my arm. Once heavy set of feet seemed to stomp all about the room. Is this supposed to happen? I mean, yes. Yes, of course, this is all part of the process. Remain calm. Well, if you're all letting go, I'm getting a candle. Please don't. I've got you, Harry. There was more fumbling. The sounds of shifting footsteps, someone bumping against the furniture, and finally... He waited so long to do this. The flick of a light, the dim orange flame waved for a moment, suspended above Lupine? What did I call him? Extended pinky. He made his way back over to the light switch and switched it on. Both Harold and Noack were clinging to Faraday. He shrugged them off. Deleuze had a suspicious grin on her face. Vance was hyperventilating with panic, and Lupin quickly moved to help her to a chair. Goose stood exactly where they'd been, face characteristically blank. They adjusted their hats. Myers was laughing to herself. Harold suspected it was more nervous than she'd like to let on. Despite everything, Harold and Faraday were still in the same position, holding hands, in what could no longer be called a circle. Their guests looked around, all of them disoriented. Is everything okay? Well, actually, I hate to be a bother, but we have to finish performing this ritual, or else, Oh no! The demon shark tooth is gone! What? Most of the guests circled around to the curio case, leaving Harold and Faraday still standing with their hands clasped. Good heavens! Good heavens, Master Ludikill. Didn't you say this place was sealed? It is. And I really hate to insist that we finish the... I can't believe it. Such amazing luck. There had been a trace of tiredness about Belle most of the evening, but now she seemed invigorated, a picture of perfect health. Luck? What the hell are you talking about? Oh, so lacking in imagination. Belle is a mystery writer, and now she has herself a mystery. I've got to get my notes. With this building completely sealed up, we can solve this crime right here and now. This should be fun. But what about... You finish up. I'll be right back. I haven't felt this wonderful for weeks. Belle moved out of the room, muttering excitedly to himself. Actually, I'm not feeling so great. I need a minute to freshen up. I should go do a check around. What if someone's hiding out somewhere? Can't solve the mystery if we don't all have the clues. There's a criminal on the loose. No way you're going on this place without someone to protect you. Oh, how horrifying. Someone might make something of my curio cabinet. Dear. This is no way to communicate with the voices of the dead. He tried to get someone else's attention. We're running out of time to find the killer. Oh, finally, someone is listening to me. Please retrieve Belle before we lose the mental resonance to... What if that person who left the threat did get in? I need to warn Belle. She hustled out of the room. Harold peered over towards Myers, who was peering toward the door. Please, Miss Myers, we can finish this much faster with just a few more people in the chain. I'm so sorry, but if she's gone to get them, I really want to see Miss Belle's notes. I'll be right back, I promise, and... I never wanted to see a ghost anyway. Harold looked around. Well, I'm certainly impressed. Is anyone else? Who's there? Noises. That's him. Lupin hopped from behind a chair. Gotcha. And there he goes too. Faraday gave a long sigh. He looked at the empty room and then at Harold's hands. On the bright side, I don't think they're going to notice you can't summon ghosts. I brought 3 stray imps from the house. Had a whole light show prepared. I'd almost finished unsealing their vessel. It was going to look astounding. But now, let's just reinforce the seal and be done with it. Man, it's really just sealing and unsealing with you, isn't it? What else am I good for? Cherry little line killed the conversation dead. The pair slowly finished their work. I sort of forgot how stressy it is to be around so many people. Yes, I am a bit out of practice. We'll get through the night. And at least we know neither of us stole the thing. I suppose that's true. Of course it is. You haven't let go of my hand since you took it. You know, maybe having invited a thief to their party will make me look better. You know, by comparison. Oof, Harry. You really are depressing sometimes. If I'm so depressing, why don't you walk away with the others? Well, I would, but if leaving you once caused so much fuss, then I hate to see scream noise. Oh God, what now? As they stepped from the parlor, Faraday and Harold could smell a putrid, singed odor. Is someone burned? There was more than one scream, and they were all able to find the sound down the hall. They followed it further, descending to the boiler room. As the guests gathered at the source of the noise, they were all confronted by an inconsolable Vance. In the boiler room, the once stern woman was doubled over next to a charred body laying in the furnace. Clarice burst straight into tears, and Hawley found himself compelled to move over and touch her arm gently. He turned them both to look away from the gruesome scene. Deleuze held her nose, jaw set in a grimace. Goose offered her their handkerchief, and she accepted it with a grim nod, holding it to her face. How can you see? Oh, Faraday shot Lupin a nervous look, but it seemed the twist in the plot was not to his taste. Noack looked toward Deleuze. Harold alone continued to stare at the body. From far away, it looked like an unidentified charred corpse. But up close, Harold could recognize the musculature of a likely feminine form. Large drops of metal that were once buttons arranged on the torso in a V-shape, and the silhouette of a brow and a nose he'd seen so often in the papers. There was just enough left of her to identify. Their host, Bernadette Bell, was dead. Did anyone see who did this? No. Just heard the scream. Clarice wailed and hung on to Hawley. Why would anyone do such a thing like this? Usually it's someone with something to gain, or people who do it for money. Lieutenant Noack flicked his gaze towards Goose. You're looking at everyone, who had walked over next to the Fae, leaning down to whisper. They looked up and stood to full height, looming over the rest of the guests. It wasn't hard to imagine this tower of a person picking poor Belle up and shoving her into the furnace. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Merrick is in the military. Killing people for money isn't beyond him. Dear, there is a hitman right there. There was no bounty on this lady, trust me. Vance rose to her feet, pointing an accusing finger toward the rest of them. I've had it. One of you did this. Vance dissolved into tears. Shouldn't we call the police? Harold pinched the bridge of his nose. They can't get in until sunrise. The house is still sealed. Can't you just unseal it? Not this one. I am much better at sealing up than letting them out. I think your ritual did this to her. That's not how it works. Geez, lady, who do you think Harry here can spontaneously combust people from 2 rooms away? If he had that kind of ability, he's sure as lightning wouldn't be getting treated with this much disrespect. Settle down, Holly. She's just upset. It's normal to be irrational. Irrational? How dare you? As sketchy as he is in personal life, jumping to conclusions doesn't help anyone. There's something else going on here. Of course you feel safe. You got all the strong men wrapped around your finger. Excuse me? Not a man. Yes, we're all very aware that one of them's your husband, and you've been flirting with the other all night. Maybe if we can question you all and check for evidence, then we can figure this out. I don't want to be locked in here with the murderer. Have no fear, little miss. I'm more than happy to stand guard until morning for you. Look who's flirting now. And next to a dead body. I'm appalled by that accusation. Protecting a lady isn't flirting. It's just the right thing to do. And parties are supposed to have flirting. Parties and flirting are like hand in glove. If anything is inappropriate here, it's the murder. Ugh, maybe we should be in separate rooms. Not that I'm worried. I could fight off any one of you. Really upping your case over there. Please give us some space to examine the body. Don't touch her. I don't think we can without the whole thing crumbling into a pile of ashes. Faraday knew, before the words even left his mouth, that it was precisely the wrong thing to say. With a mighty sob, Vance pushed past the rest of the group and rushed up the stairs. Harold decided to take control of the situation. Listen up. We will all stay the night here in this room. I will go and get Miss Vance, and then we will wait in here until morning. Not a soul touches the crime scene. There is likely only one killer, and against all of us, surely logic and a communal thirst for justice will win out. For some reason I thought there were more. Yeah, no. I'm not holding myself in a room by myself until morning. I'm seriously going to lose it if I have to spend one more minute in this smell. Or in this company. She left, quickly followed by a protesting knock. Harold's second attempt to keep the guests together was equally as successful as the first. Soon only he and Faraday remained. Perhaps they have the right idea. Let's see if this house has a wine cellar. I'm not going to get paid tonight, so let's use this opportunity to be astonishingly expensive drunks. That is... Harry, it's up to us to figure this out. You saw that. We can't trust any of them. Only you and I were in the parlor when the murder happened. Any of the rest of them could have done it. Holly, I am running on empty. I cannot emotionally handle any more. So if you want to keep me going, I need a good reason. Any reason, so long as it's good. Faraday glared at him. Belle was a good person. Even when the other guests were awful to you, she was always nice. She didn't hire you for a parlor trick. She trusted you with the memory of her friend. She might be the only person left in this city who respected you. Are you going to hide like a big baby because you didn't want to get your feelings hurt? Or are you going to act like a decent man I know is still in there somewhere? For Belle. There we go. I knew you weren't some complete piece of garbage. Just mostly. Just a significant percentage.